The day Belle Thornwick decided my family's century-old lake belonged to her influencer son was the day she picked a fight with the wrong rancher. 6 a.m. 3 police cruisers roared up my drive, gravel spitting like gunfire. Diesel exhaust cut through the smell of coffee in my hand. And there she was, the HOA president herself, filming from her spotless Range Rover, practically salivating as officers surrounded my porch. Her claim? That I was trespassing on land my great-grandfather homesteaded in 1887. The truth? Her golden boy had been charging strangers $200 a head to fish my private lake, the same water where my grandmother's ashes rest. And when I shut him down, Belle waved forged documents and called it community access. But Belle didn't know me. She didn't know I signed every check funding the services that keep her gated fantasy afloat. And she sure as hell didn't know that HOAs don't lose land, we bury people on it. Montana, 2,400 acres carved out of wilderness by Augustus Holloway in 1887. A spring-fed, 12-acre lake where he built our first cabin. For generations born, raised, and laid to rest. When my grandmother Eleanor passed, we scattered her ashes at sunset across those waters. The sound of waves on stone still carries her laughter. This isn't land. It's bloodline. I'm Garrett Holloway, 45, divorced, daughter off at college, just me and the ranch. I never thought a suburban queen with a Range Rover and manicure claws would declare war on my family's soul. But 5 years ago, developers jammed 200 McMansions on a postage stamp lots beside my pasture. They called it Whispering Pines Estates. I signed their emergency easement, neighborly goodwill. That's when Belle slithered in. Late 40s, highlights worth more than my monthly feed bill, real estate smile polished sharp as barbed wire. Married to a banker who probably thinks hay grows shrink-wrapped at Costco. Her complaints started day one. Cattle smell ruining her dinner parties, native grasses unsightly. Could I mow them? Professionalize the view? I laughed. Big mistake. Then her son, Tucker, showed up. 22, Instagram influencer with the work ethic of roadkill. He turned my lake into his backdrop. Diesel trucks at dawn, beer bottles in the cattails, EDM drowning out meadowlarks. At first it was trespassing, then business. Tucker started charging $300 for exclusive access. Posted like my lake had been in his family for generations. Entitlement stinks worse than manure. When I shut it down, Belle knocked on my door, all sympathy and fake concern. Manila folder, forged documents, claims of traditional township water rights. Cute, except Whispering Pines didn't exist until 2019. I smiled, photographed every page. My grandfather's words echoed. When liars show you papers, let them think you're fooled, then use it to bury them. Belle escalated. County inspectors, HOA meetings, whisper campaigns about my finances. She called me unstable, said cattle threatened their watershed, said property values were falling. But I know the law, and I know how to fight. Surveyor's GPS showed her fence 3 feet onto my land. I installed high-def cameras on every trail to the lake. Evidence started rolling in. Tucker with a full film crew, building a dock on my property for paid shoots. On camera, claiming it was his family's lake. On camera, listing his profit margins. Fraud, trespass, property damage, documented down to the second. But Belle wasn't done. She weaponized her neighbors, sending them to my porch with nuisance complaints. Claimed my cattle were hurting rural residential harmony. Translation, hurting their home values. Then came her dirtiest play yet. A call to the sheriff. False report of threats and violence. Deputy Collins showed up, body cam rolling. Garrett, Belle says you threatened her at your fence line yesterday. I almost laughed. Almost. But I kept calm. Deputy, I've got cameras on every inch of this property. Want to see the footage? Belle thought rural meant stupid. Thought kindness meant weakness. Thought a rancher couldn't fight suburban warfare. She was wrong. Because in Montana, when someone tries to steal your legacy, you don't just defend it. You destroy them. I pulled out my phone, opened the Cloud app, and hit play. The footage was perfect. There I was standing 15 feet back from the fence, explaining property lines in a calm, even tone. Belle, on the other hand, was red-faced, screaming about rural terrorism and threats to the community. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even point a finger. I just turned and walked away. Collins watched the whole thing, shaking his head. "Ma'am clearly has issues with the truth," he muttered, jotting notes. Then his tone shifted. "But Garrett, you need to know, she's filing for a restraining order. Claims you've got a history of aggressive behavior towards subdivision residents. A restraining order. Brilliant play, really. Even if dismissed, the filing alone painted me as unstable, violent, the aggressor. And with her husband's law firm quietly coaching in the background, it reeked of strategy. But two could play the documentation game. I've been studying Montana property law since Belle first darkened my door. Homestead rights, water law, harassment statutes. Filing false police reports? Felony. Up to 2 years each. Every bogus call, another charge. And the harassment pattern I'd been recording could open the door to civil damages. Attorneys' fees, reputation harm, the works. So I counterpunched. Hard. First came my own harassment complaint, backed by 47 documented incidents over 6 months. Trespass logs, false claims, business interference, each one time-stamped and photographed. Then I dropped $5,000 on McKinsey and Associates, the best water rights attorneys in Montana. They confirmed what I'd suspected. My 1887 homestead patent carried absolute water rights under federal prior appropriation doctrine. No HOA, no county board, no state agency could touch that without constitutional due process and just compensation. Belle's whole public access argument wasn't just weak, it was dead. But Belle wasn't done. Thursday morning, my insurance carrier called. "Mr. Holloway, we've received a claim. The HOA says your property is an attractive nuisance. They want you to fund additional subdivision patrols and grant a community access easement to your lake, or face a lawsuit. Attractive nuisance. A legal stretch if there ever was one. My lake was plastered with no trespassing signs, fenced, and under surveillance. That's not attraction. That's warning. But the insurer didn't care. They wanted to avoid lawsuits, not protect my rights. Rate hikes unless I played nice. What they didn't know was I had Tucker on tape bragging about making $47,000 in 3 months selling exclusive lake access. His own mouth proved that any nuisance wasn't mine. It was manufactured by his illegal business. Sometimes you don't need a fight. You just let your enemies hang themselves with their own rope. Belle's desperation bled into the next move. She called Channel 7, spun herself into a victim. "Dad, you're on the evening news," Skylar warned, her voice tight over the phone. Sure enough, there I was. Ranch owner denies lake access to community children. Belle stood at my fence line with crying kids in swimsuits, holding signs that read, "Let us swim and stop rural bullying." The reporter swallowed every word. To the public, I wasn't a rancher protecting sacred family land. I was a greedy villain denying innocent families their tradition. Then came her GoFundMe. Save public lake access. $12,000 in 2 days. Donations rolling in from strangers across the country calling me a corporate thug. Death threats hit my inbox. Contracts canceled. Feed supplier, vet clinic, even my mechanic of 15 years. Belle had escalated to economic warfare. And then she turned to sabotage. Saturday morning, my water pump system collapsed. At first glance, 80-year-old equipment finally giving up. But behind the pump house, I found the truth. Severed lines, smashed control panel. $8,000 in damage. My cattle went dry in the hottest week of summer. The cameras caught shadows moving at 2 a.m., hoodies hiding their faces. But tire tracks in the mud matched the tread pattern of Tucker's lifted pickup. Sheriff Collins called the evidence insufficient. Hard to press charges when your wife sits on a county board with Belle's husband. But pressure creates cracks. While I fixed fences and repairs, Skylar started digging. Journalism major, sharp instincts. What she found was dynamite. Belle had been fired from her last real estate firm for falsifying documents. Online reviews accused her of scamming elderly sellers. And her husband's bank? Under federal audit for shady lending. The same bank holding subdivision construction loans and half the residents' mortgages. If that ship sank, Whispering Pines would go down with it. Meanwhile, Tucker's ego was self-destructing in public. He launched a Free the Lake party. 200 RSVPs, peaceful protest, in influencer speak. They arrived like locusts. Half a mile of cars. Strangers crossing my pastures with coolers, cameras, camping gear. Smoke and fireworks over waters where my grandmother's ashes rest. By dawn, my land looked like a battlefield. Trampled fences, scattered cattle. A grass fire torched 40 acres of prime pasture. $15,000 gone in a night. Fire crews, deputies, ambulances. 3 kids hauled out for alcohol poisoning. Tucker and Belle vanished before questioning. Then I saw the bill. Every emergency response, from a fire to the cops to the ambulance, charged to my property. I pulled old records. Same story for 5 years. Every call Belle ever made to harass me. Every patrol car she sicked on my ranch. All paid for by my taxes. And then, digging through my grandfather's old filing cabinet, I found the nuclear option. A folder stamped 1962 County Service District. Back then, Montana had created special rural service districts to coordinate utilities and emergency services. My ranch, being the largest parcel, was designated the anchor, which meant one thing. The ranch owner was automatically the district administrator. Those powers had passed quietly from Augustus to my grandfather, from him to my father, and from my father to me. And I'd had no idea. The language was clear. As administrator, I controlled every service contract in the district: police, fire, EMS, roads. I could approve, deny, or terminate contracts with 30 days' notice. For years, I've been unknowingly footing 60% of the district budget, $200,000 annually, while Belle's subdivision paid the rest. My money had funded the very services she weaponized against me. But now I held the keys to every lifeline her subdivision depended on. And the financial records we pulled showed the spending wasn't just unfair. It was criminal. The numbers didn't lie. $400,000 a year billed for enhanced security patrols, services worth maybe 80. Pool maintenance, clubhouse utilities, even tennis court lighting, all invoiced straight to the service district. They've been siphoning public funds to prop up their private playground, certain the dumb rancher would never notice the shell game. But I'd found their soft underbelly, and it was made of greed. Montana Sunshine Laws gave me everything I needed: full transparency, immediate access to every invoice, every contract, every payment authorization. My administrator's authority let me terminate contracts with 30 days' notice, order audits, and refer irregularities to state and federal prosecutors. I could shut down their police, fire, and emergency services with a single letter. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't on defense. I wasn't documenting harassment or cleaning up vandalism. I was holding the detonator. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, coffee gone cold, reviewing the documents for the 10th time. This wasn't just about my lake anymore. It was about every rancher who'd been bullied by suburban imports demanding the countryside bend to their preferences. Belle thought she was fighting some isolated landowner with limited resources. She had no idea I controlled the very infrastructure her community depended on. The old administrator had been asleep for 3 years. I was wide awake. Monday morning, I called a war council. McKinsey and Associates smelled of leather and old law books, where legacies got made and empires destroyed. Sarah McKinsey spread the service district charters across the table like battle maps. Garrett, these powers are extraordinary. You can cut every municipal contract inside 30 days. But we move surgically. Document everything. Follow procedure. Leave no opening. Pete Morrison, my accountant and old friend, was already neck-deep in the numbers. His calculator clattered like machine gun fire. Jesus, Garrett, look here. They've been milking you for 10 years. Security alone is padded by $300,000 annually. And Tucker? His own Instagram brags about $47,000 in 3 months off your lake, plus sponsorship kickbacks. He's basically built his brand on your property. Skylar hunched over her laptop, eyes sharp. Dad, it's bigger. The security company draining you? Same ownership group as Belle's husband's bank. Kickback scheme. They've been laundering HOA expenses through municipal contracts. The strategy fell into place. Phase 1. Formal notification. Assert authority, order a full audit, lock the doors behind me with procedure. Phase 2. Cut the fat. Cancel the padded security patrols, the landscaping disguised as emergency services, the special event slush funds. Keep police and fire intact at first. Phase 3. Drop the hammer. Public confrontation at the HOA meeting with media rolling and evidence in hand. Sarah reminded me Montana's transparency laws would force every meeting into the open. No shadows, no closed-door scheming. Pete flagged civil forfeiture. If Tucker's truck was used for trespass operations, if Belle's house was bought with stolen funds, prosecutors could seize them. And the timing was perfect. In 3 weeks, Tucker was hosting his biggest stunt yet. 500 kids and sponsors swarming my lake for an outdoor challenge. A circus of commercial trespass, live stream for the world. Exactly the proof we needed. We lined up allies. Commissioner Janet Torres, hungry for re-election on a Protect Rural Land platform. The Montana Wilderness Society, already tracking ecological damage from Instagram tourism. Even cracks inside Whispering Pines itself. Families whispering about skyrocketing HOA fees, tired of Belle's drama. By the end of that meeting, I wasn't just a rancher defending his land. I was holding the blueprint for dismantling Belle's entire kingdom. Sarah slid a thick folder across the table. Garrett, you're about to become very famous. This case will be in law reviews. Make sure you're ready for that kind of heat. Walking out into the mountain air, I felt the shift deep in my bones. The balance had flipped. Belle had been dictating terms for months. Now I had the weapons. Tuesday morning, the first shot. A certified letter to the HOA board, surgical and precise. Effective immediately. All service district expenditures require administrator approval. Any unauthorized use of public funds for private subdivision amenities constitutes embezzlement under Montana Code 45-6-316. You have 30 days to produce complete financial records or face contract termination. Copies to the county commissioners, the state attorney general, local media, the FBI's white-collar crime division. Overkill? Maybe. But I wanted the whole world watching when the dominoes fell. Belle's panic was instant. By afternoon, she'd called an emergency HOA meeting. Her email to residents was pure hysteria. Urgent. Rancher threatens community safety. Emergency action required. She shrieked about terrorism, about children left defenseless. Then she overplayed her hand. Word leaked from county administration. Belle had actually tried to file a domestic terrorism report against me, claiming I was weaponizing infrastructure to threaten community survival. That was the moment I knew she was finished. The governor's staff didn't just dismiss Belle's domestic terrorism complaint. They laughed her out of the building. Undeterred, she doubled down, hiring Pinnacle Crisis Management out of Seattle. $37,000 for a 2-week contract, paid directly out of HOA funds without a board vote. Another act of embezzlement, added to her already staggering list of crimes. The smear campaign launched instantly. Fake accounts sprouted like weeds across every platform, spamming 1-star reviews of my ranch, accusing me of animal abuse, water pollution, even threats against neighbors. Anonymous tips flooded state agencies, IRS, EPA, animal control, building inspectors, each one a lie designed to bury me under investigations that would take months and money to disprove. Tucker did his part with a shaky, tearful video. This crazy rancher said he'd make me disappear if I didn't stop using the lake. Designer tears, a trembling voice, a complete fabrication. The clip went viral anyway, and with it came death threats from strangers who thought they were defending a victim. But while Belle and Tucker staged their melodrama for clicks, I built my case brick by brick. Sarah filed injunctions against harassment, backed by 47 documented false reports. Each one, on its own, carried up to 2 years in prison. Together, they showed an organized conspiracy. Pete's audit cut even deeper. The $400 000 security contract was a shell game. Bell's brother-in-law owned the firm. Only 20% of patrol hours ever happened. The rest? Pure theft. Landscaping, pool maintenance, tennis court lighting. Every amenity of Bell's suburban paradise billed to taxpayers as public necessity. Then came their most dangerous move yet. Thursday night, my fence lines were cut in 3 places. By dawn, 40 head of cattle were wandering Highway 93, forcing emergency services into a scramble. The setup was perfect. Anonymous calls to dispatch claiming I'd released dangerous livestock in retaliation. Exactly the kind of chaos Bell needed to frame me as unstable. But my new security system didn't miss a thing. Motion sensors tripped. Infrared cameras rolled. Tucker's lifted truck appeared in frame. Hooded figures cut posts. Time for maximum road disruption. Worse for them, the microphones picked up their own words. Make it look like the crazy rancher lost his shit. Bell wants this to look like he's dangerous. By noon, Sheriff Collins had their crew in handcuffs. Criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, conspiracy. Tucker tried to deny involvement, but GPS data from his truck told a different story. Bell responded by staging her own town hall, demanding the county seize my land under eminent domain. But the arrests detonated inside her subdivision. 3 local teenagers, kids, not hardened criminals, were suddenly facing felony charges. Their parents, once loyal to Bell, realized she'd pulled their children into a criminal conspiracy. Her next move was even more reckless. She retained a high-priced defense attorney out of Billings, $60,000 retainer billed directly to HOA funds. When residents demanded answers, she claimed it was a community safety expense. The room turned hostile. 3 board members resigned on the spot rather than face liability for her spending. Property values dropped 15% in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Pete's audit exposed the rot in full. Shell corporations, kickback schemes, $2 million siphoned over 5 years. Schuyler's journalism contacts were already feeding the story to Channel 7. Their reporters found subdivision families who admitted Bell pressured them into signing false complaints against me. Elderly residents confessed she threatened foreclosure through her husband's bank unless they backed her initiatives. Tucker, meanwhile, was collapsing under IRS scrutiny. His $200,000 in lake access income contrasted against the $37,000 he'd reported. Sponsors vanished. The energy drink event was canceled. His influencer empire crumbled. But Bell wasn't finished. Saturday evening, she came to me in person. She crossed my pasture in heels that sank into dirt with every step, perfume sharp against the smell of dust and sweat. My body cam recorded everything. "Garrett, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand." I didn't stop working the fence. "What's to discuss, Bell?" Her voice shook. "I can make this go away. $50,000 cash if you drop the lawsuits. Tucker keeps using the lake, but just for personal things. No more commercial activity." She didn't even flinch at the word bribery. On tape, a federal felony gift-wrapped. When I called her out, her composure cracked. Look, maybe Tucker went too far. Boys will be boys. And yes, maybe there were some irregularities with district funds, but nothing malicious. Just misunderstandings. $2 million in theft was now a misunderstanding. Her desperation told me the federal investigation was closing in. The bank was exposed. Their house, bought with stolen funds, was destined for forfeiture. Her suburban kingdom was collapsing. And then the hammer dropped. The termination notices I'd issued kicked in. No more subsidized services. The subdivision now had to pay market rates. $180,000 a year for police patrols, $85,000 for road upkeep, emergency services prepaid or denied. Monday morning, residents opened their mailboxes to emergency assessments. $3,200 each. Panic spread like wildfire. By Tuesday's emergency HOA meeting, the room was mutiny. Residents demanded transparency, threatened lawsuits, even discussed dissolving the HOA outright. Bell had lost control, but the final battleground wasn't theirs to choose. Thursday at 2 p.m., the county commission hearing convened. Media packed the chamber shoulder to shoulder. Reporters, live streams, angry homeowners, ranchers, environmentalists, all jammed into a space that smelled of sweat, coffee, and anticipation. I sat with Sarah and Pete, our binders stacked like ammunition. Across the aisle, Belle huddled with her 3 attorneys, pale beneath the lights. Commissioner Janet Torres called the room to order. We are here to address allegations regarding Rural Service District financial management and administrative authority. Mr. Holloway, as the complainant, you have the floor. I stood slowly, feeling 4 generations at my back. Commissioners, what I'm about to present is the largest municipal fraud case in Cedar Ridge County history. I held up the first exhibit, yellow documents from 1962 establishing my authority as Service District Administrator. For 3 years, I unknowingly held budget oversight powers for every municipal service in this region. Powers Mrs. Thornwick exploited to steal nearly $2 million from the public. Belle's attorney shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor, this isn't a... Counselor, Commissioner Torres snapped, sit down. This is a hearing, not a circus. Mr. Holloway, continue. The room went silent. The real trial was just beginning. Mr. Holloway has the floor. I rose slowly, laid out the binders, and let the numbers speak. My ranch pays 60% of this district's budget, about $200,000 a year. Those funds were siphoned off, year after year, to bankroll private subdivision luxuries. Exhibit after exhibit hit the table like artillery fire. Security contracts billing $400,000 for patrols worth $80,000. Pool chemicals disguised as public safety supplies. Tennis court lighting filed under emergency road infrastructure. Then came Tucker's greatest mistake, his own Instagram. Every post, every sponsored wilderness challenge, every dollar earned selling access to my private lake documented a crime. He made over $200,000 exploiting land he didn't own, while reporting $37,000 to the IRS. The room went still as audio recordings rolled through the speakers. Tucker bragging about profits. Belle coaching residents on false complaints. The fence-cutting conspiracy caught on infrared, their voices clear as confession. They didn't just steal my land, I said into the microphone. They stole my family's legacy and sold it back to strangers for content. And then, Belle's final undoing. Her voice, trembling from my body cam recording, $50,000 cash if you drop the case. Just let Tucker use the lake sometimes. A federal felony in surround sound. Commissioner Torres leaned forward, her tone like a hammer on steel. Mrs. Thornwick, do you wish to respond? Her lawyer whispered frantically. She brushed him aside and stood, shaking. These are misunderstandings, accounting errors, maybe confusion about service boundaries. We never intended. Enough, Torres cut her off. We've just heard your own words, offering bribes and admitting to irregularities. That is not miscommunication. One by one, neighbors stood to testify. Chuck Morrison described harassment campaigns. Elderly residents revealed foreclosure threats. Dr. Rebecca Martinez showed photos of ecological damage from Tucker's commercial stunts, before and after shots that drew audible gasps. And then Margaret Henderson, tears streaking her face. We trusted her. Belle told us Garrett was dangerous. She threatened to take our homes if we didn't cooperate. We were scared. By the time testimony ended, the commissioners voted unanimously. All HOA service contracts terminated, pending investigation. Financial irregularities referred to state and federal prosecutors. My role as district administrator upheld and commended. Sheriff Collins announced criminal charges: embezzlement, conspiracy, false reporting. The FBI would handle white-collar crimes. Tucker faced tax fraud and commercial trespassing. As media swarmed the exits, subdivision residents cornered Belle, demanding answers about their emergency assessments. Her suburban empire collapsed in 2 hours of public record. The Friday headline said it all. HOA president arrested in massive fraud scheme. Rural Service District corruption exposed. 6 months later, justice tasted like black coffee on my porch, watching dawn break over the lake. Bell, 18 months in federal prison, 400,000 restitution. Tucker, 5 years probation, lifetime ban from monetizing social media, community service. His accomplices, county jail and restitution. Civil suit, 500,000 in damages, plus seizure of Tucker's truck and camera gear. Bell's home sold in forfeiture. Her husband's bank collapsed under money laundering charges. But money wasn't the victory. Justice was. The new HOA board apologized publicly and signed the Holloway Accord, formal recognition of historic ranch operations, permanent protection against interference. Commercial use of my land is now a federal crime. The land healed quickly. Waterfowl returned. Invasive weeds withered. The balance my great-grandfather protected came back. With restitution funds, I founded the Rural Heritage Protection Fund, legal support for families under HOA attack. In 6 months, we helped 47 ranchers. Donations poured in. Scholarships launched for AG students studying conservation and land law. Skylar switched her major to investigative journalism. Inspired, determined. Even bigger, Montana passed the Rural Property Rights Protection Act, nicknamed the Bell Bill. HOA financial abuse became a felony. Our case is now taught in law schools and featured in documentaries. 1 year later, 5,000 people gathered for the first Rural Heritage Days festival. Instead of Instagram tourists trampling cattle pastures, visitors learned about stewardship, conservation, and real Montana grit. Standing by the lake last weekend, watching my daughter teach watershed science, I thought of my great-grandfather Augustus. He'd homesteaded this land with little more than grit and paperwork. A century later, those same papers defended us against suburban colonizers who thought wealth could rewrite law. The water lapped over stones where Grandma Eleanor's ashes rested. Meadowlarks sang across pastures now safe. Sometimes bullies pick fights they cannot win. My grandfather always said, "The land teaches patience, but it also teaches justice." When someone tries to steal your heritage, you don't just fight back. You make sure they'll never try it again. Thanks for hanging out with us on HOA Stories, where bullies meet their match. If this tale had you cheering or cringing, smash that like button, drop your own HOA nightmare in the comments, and subscribe, because next week, you'll hear how one retired teacher dismantled an entire corrupt school board armed with nothing but a calculator and a stack of public records. The land endures, justice prevails, and Montana ranchers, we don't back down.